Hey, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Q&A session with myself, Mike Schlickburn.
I'm Tanner Sherman. I'm the asset manager for Dream Investing Capital.
Yeah, so today we're going to be discussing the real estate syndication versus the fund, and which one is right for you. So we welcome you to our Q&A, and we'd like to hear from you and any questions you may have. I mean, this is your show just as well as it's ours.
Absolutely, and as we wait for everyone to kind of trickle in a little bit, we want to give some shout outs to some of our and our affiliate partners.
Orange Property Management, you know those.
Solid roofing exteriors.
Rearrange for Change. We've had them stage multiple houses for us in the past, 10, 15 years, and they do an awesome job.
Absolutely. Galaxy Title and Escrow. We've probably done
Great
a lot of deals with them.
So, yeah, as we continue on through the show, we'll give out some shout outs to our sponsors. As you can see behind us too, we have a bunch of their names on as well. So, should we just jump right in, or is there any questions from any of our audience members? We'd also like to hear where you're from. If you could give us a chat and say, hey, well, I'm tuning in from, I don't know, Des Moines.
Council Bluffs.
Des Moines, Council Bluffs. Yeah, I know there's a viewer jumping in from Des Moines.
Oh yeah.
And somebody from Vegas is supposed to be jumping on.
We've got quite a bit from Omaha and Lincoln.
Okay. So, do you want to talk about syndications, or what are we here for?
Well, we're here to answer questions.
Yeah, we want to make this light and fun and have everybody enjoy the time with us. So,
in the comments, you'll see that we have links to our social media. So if you want to keep up with the action, what we're up to, and find out more about us, feel free to go over there and give us a nice follow and subscribe.
Yeah. A little background on myself: been flipping houses since 2008 for other investors, and then when my wife and I got together in 2010, we started flipping houses together, and then started property management, our real estate team, just everything. And of course, I've always had the construction company, which started in 2004. And
how many houses have you flipped, Mike?
Oh, over 300 and some, but I know for sure we'd have to go through, and that's one thing I'd like to do, is make a running list of every single address. I know we have hard drives full of pictures of properties. So
Absolutely. So Brad says, "What's up, rock stars?"
Hey, Brad.
Let's see. Got Hey from West O, Dover, New Hampshire. There we go. That name sounds familiar. We got St. Pete, Florida.
Oh, nice.
Let's see.
Shout out to Andy in St. Pete.
Andy. All right, awesome.
Yeah. And then the first syndication that my wife and I put together was 2019. So we've done it both ways, the syndications and the funds, and hence why we're going to discuss the difference between the two and the benefits of both.
Absolutely.
Are we waiting for a few more people to jump on, or let's just get into it?
Yeah, absolutely. So there we go.
So today we're going to discuss the requirements and what it takes to get invited into a syndication or a fund, and vetting the operators, the general partners, and the types of return you could expect from each type of different structure.
And of course, please consult your attorneys or CPA before investing passively, and take what we say purely as opinion-based entertainment, because neither of us are CPAs or attorneys.
Yes.
So, all right, so get started with some questions. So what is a fund?
A fund is multiple real estate assets all into one group, basically. And then the fund is, as well, we pooled investor money together and then went out and found the assets to assemble into that fund. So
I agree with that. It's more the pooling of the capital to buy
Yes.
multiple assets rather than just one asset.
Yes.
Right?
And also a fund is set up as a company that you buy shares of that company, and the company controls all the assets.
Absolutely.
And then, so do you want to discuss what kind of returns you'd see on a fund, or?
Yeah, absolutely. So in a In a fund type structure, it's more of a longevity play. You're trying to build your wealth and not so much just in and out, try and get a quick return. I say quick, but syndications usually run somewhere between 3 and 5 years. A fund might have a lifespan of anywhere from 5 to 30 years. There's even larger funds that eventually become REITs and real estate investment trusts.
Yes.
Yeah.
Real estate investment trust.
And those hold billions and billions of dollars. So a fund is a very vague term for just a pool of funds and shareholders that own all of the assets. So, but the return structure in a syndication, typically what you're going to see is somewhere around a 5 to 8% pref, which is when you invest your capital, you get the first, whatever it is, 7% of all the returns. And after that 7%, sometimes there's a general partner catch up, where the general partner gets the next 3% of profits, and then it'll kind of go back and forth until it's a 50-50. And there's also some structures where once you recover all your capital, every penny is, or every dollar is split 50-50. So
You said the word pref there. What's a pref?
pref is a preferred return.
Preferred return. That's just short for preferred return.
So we have a question in the comments. As someone new to real estate investment, is real estate syndication a better option? Well, better option compared to investing yourself, I would say it's a good place to start. If you have a pre-existing relationship with someone who is doing syndications, then it's a great way to get your education while you earn a return. There's a lot of risk in getting into real estate without education, and so partnering with someone that has the experience, because the 3 things you need to make a deal happen is capital, money and capital, knowledge, and the time to do it. And so what a general partner provides is the knowledge and the time to get the work done, and they bring in people that have the capital but don't have the knowledge or the time, or maybe they have the knowledge and the capital but they don't have the time. So
do you want to talk about what kind of things you use to analyze if a syndication is worth buying? Maybe jump into that and share builders.
When we come across an opportunity, we run it through a series of tests, and the first test might start at a 5-minute test where we're just quickly looking at, okay, what could this produce and what would the property be worth after we got it to that point. And then if that seems like that might be worth it, I'll go into 10 minutes, and then we'll go a little bit more deep in the numbers, and eventually it gets to the point where I could spend 5 to 8 hours underwriting a deal and looking at comparable rents and understanding, okay, well, if we go put granite countertops in there, can we max out that rent and give our investors another 3% return? You know, how can we kind of spin this up to be a much better deal? And after we get through that whole analysis, then what we do is we'll go out and we'll submit what's called an LOI, which is a letter of intent to purchase. In commercial real estate, that's the initial offer for a property, and then it goes into a negotiation.
Yes. Yeah,
So
a little more specific on some of those, like I heard the term T12. What's a T12 for a property?
So T12 is a trailing 12-month financial report. It's sometimes called a P&L, or a profit and loss. It's also referred to as a cash flow statement, and it just breaks down your income and your expenses for the last 12 months. One important thing to note is that what a bank does is they will evaluate the last 3 months of income and the last 12 months of expenses. And the reason for that is the income for the last 3 months, the last quarter, will and it should give you a good idea of how rents are changing over time. So they'll show the rent growth or rent decrease. And the expenses, they want to see the whole year, because have different expenses in different seasons. So you won't have a snow removal expense in the summertime, and so they won't be able to underwrite for it. So it's important to note that the 12-month period is what the bank underwrites you on. So that's what you want to underwrite your deals on.
Yeah.
So it looks like we have another comment.
Yeah, hence why you're the acquisition guy. Tanner loves spreadsheets, reviewing numbers, analyzing properties. He does an amazing job at it. So we're in good hands here at Dream Investing Capital with you analyzing the properties, I would say.
Well, that just goes to say in a partnership, and there's multiple roles in a partnership. And for me, I don't know much about property management. I know that Mike can handle all the property management, has the experience in that aspect to be able to cover down there.
Yeah, I was a property manager when I first moved to Omaha, and then worked on maintenance on the properties, built up a team. We did all the renovations for apartments, and just grew and scaled from there. So long history going back to 2000, 2001. Starting to age myself here now a little bit. So anyway, let's look at a few more questions here. What can I expect to receive profits from an investment? Monthly, quarterly, yearly? Does the profit payment schedule differ between a syndication and a fund?
Absolutely, that's a really good question. So in a syndication, it'll be, well, a syndication and a fund, when you're establishing your initial investment, you'll have a subscription agreement, and it'll explain what the intent is for distributions. And in a syndication, if you're doing a value add, they might say it's going to be 12 months before we can kick out a disbursement, or right after month one, we're going to be cash flowing and we plan to start sending them out. Most operators will send them out quarterly when available. And the reason for that is when you start getting a monthly dividend check, then you expect that dividend check. And people start paying their bills with it, and they start relying on it for grocery money. And then when it doesn't come, it puts them in a bind. So it's better is to let that money pool up and distribute it quarterly. Now in a fund, you get dividends based on the number of shares that you own. So in the fund, you own equity in the company. In a syndication, you're owning shares in that one project.
One asset, yeah.
Right.
One property, one asset. So you're basically hoping the performance of that one asset is up to par and where it needs to be to get your returns.
And the thing with the cash flow returns is it's going to be very minimal. And when an operator underwrites a property, it's probably going to be somewhere between 3 to 7% in the first 5 years. The real major return is when you get to year 5 and you're looking to do a cash out refinance or a sale. And that's where you'll get a 300% return. It'll average out for the whole project as a 28% overall return. So when someone's going out and saying that we're projecting a 20% IRR, which is internal rate of return, what they're saying is that you might get a little bit of cash flow over the first couple of years, but year 5 when we sell, you'll get a big chunk of money plus your initial investment.
Yeah. Versus the fund, we're looking at more of a long-term play as the assets increase in value, their share price rises in value, the performance of the property, as that increases in value, of course, our shares increase in value as well. And so then mainly the exit strategy is when we go to sell a property, right? Then we pay out that way. So, and again, we need to align with our investors on what they're looking for and what they'd like to see for a rate of return and then dividends as well. So
I see a couple questions. Is that a 3 to 5% on the income, and how does debt service play into that equation? So when we're talking about the percentage returns, usually it's what each investor gets on their initial investment. So if someone invests $50,000 and gets a 3% return on that, it's going to be the same as someone who puts on $500,000 and gets 3% on that. So the investors get the same return on their money, depending on, because when we kick out a distribution, it's pro rata, which means it's based on your contribution. So and how debt service plays into that is the cash flow is calculated after debt service is paid. So when you're doing income and expenses and NOI, income minus expenses is your net operating income, and then after net operating income, you pay your loan and loan insurance.
So a debt service ratio, what's the term that you hear a lot of times for it?
Debt service coverage ratio.
Yes, which is
DSCR is based on the income and the debt payment. And typically to get approved for a commercial loan, you need a 1.25 or better debt service coverage. If you're in less popular markets, it'll be a 1.3. I've seen lenders go as low as 1.2, but typically you want to be in that 1.25.
Yeah, that right there, what you said, is key for getting a loan. So really good information right there. Another question here. Let's see. It's a lot of information for someone starting out in real estate investing. What's in your experience? Is this more of a who, not how activity? So, a lot of it is you want to invest with somebody that does have a lot of experience, a lot of bumps in the road. I'm an open not to do. We've made our mistakes, learned from them, and don't do it again. That's what they call experience, is learning the not to do's,
learning what not to do,
and the to do's. So, and hence why we want to share this information with everybody so they can learn and grow as well.
Well, then all the people that choose to invest with us too, they can come along for the ride.
And that's the fun thing too about property management. All the things that you'll see, we can laugh about. You know, the different things we come across, apartments destroyed, and holes punched in walls, doors. We fix it up and continue on to the next. It's the name of the game, and it's not all rainbows and butterflies, and it's finding out solutions, figuring out a way to get through it and make it better. And what can we learn from this and improve on it? So,
well, I'd say the best part of partnering with someone that has property management is that they answer those 2 a.m. phone calls of, my furnace went out and it's negative 40 degrees out right now. And the property management has to be very quick to come up with a solution.
I would say we do have an excellent team when it comes to that. They're on it any hour of the night. They're there to take care of the issues and the problems, and big shout out to the management team for that.
Absolutely.
So, do we have another question here?
Yep. So, since starting this fund, what hurdles did you come across, if any? Well, I feel like it's a constant hurdle. It's just we're always breaking through to a new level.
When we first put the fund together was what projects do we want to invest in? The biggest one was a development project that I put together that started in 2019, and it took 4 years to finally get it completed. With the planning, working with the city on it. We applied for a TIF funding. That's a whole nother story on how that process goes. So there's a lot that plays into it. And then are we going after single families, multifamily, land? We have a little bit of both in the fund. We have some land, single family homes, multifamily. We have a boutique hotel. We have the new development project, and then we also have land that we want to put an 8-story building on.
So I'd say, the biggest benefit of going with a fund versus a syndication is the diversification that's offered on your investment.
Yes. Yeah, and I feel we have a lot of fun projects in there. It's been a ride, and hey, I've enjoyed it.
Absolutely.
Maybe got a few gray hairs from it. No, I don't know, but it's been fun. So.
Well, but to answer that question, I'd say the one most impactful thing is when you got introduced into the Rotary Club, and the speaker that day said something that has stuck with me, and I actually wrote it on my mirror.
Yeah,
and he
said,
"What
was that? Share that with
us." So when you come into a tough time in business or in life, you have 3 choices. You can pivot, you can persevere, or you can perish. And I feel like real estate is a constant state of pivoting, and we're always pivoting so that we don't perish. And that's something that brings with me every single day, that something will always happen. And when you go into it expecting something to happen, not really that upset when it does happen.
And the biggest thing too is working backwards, knowing your exit strategy on things, and then working back from there, and maybe expecting what not to expect sometimes as well.
Absolutely.
So,
let's see. What's the easiest real estate funding? The easiest real estate funding is probably cash. If someone comes in to a large amount of money, that's the easiest way to get introduced into it. You don't have to go through the approval process, but it's also the most risky, because if something goes wrong, you have a lot of capital at risk all at once. I'm not sure if that answers the question, but as far as getting a loan, that's a little different. So,
does one apply to be involved in a fund, or where do you go to get into a fund? Well, first I want to point out that you need to be an accredited investor. And do you want to discuss what an accredited investor, the qualifications for an accredited investor are?
Yeah, so the way that our fund and syndication is set up, it follows the SEC guidelines. The SEC is the Security and Exchange Commission, and they monitor all securities. And for something to be a security, it has to meet the Howey test. And what the Howey test is there has to be an exchange of money in a common enterprise, and with the expectation of return. And there's one other one in there, I can't remember right now, but if it meets all 4 of those criteria, well, then it has to be registered as a security with the SEC, and it's very expensive to register with the SEC. But what they do offer is exemptions, and it's called a Reg D exemption, and there's 2 different types. There's a 506B and a 506C exemption. The 506B allows you to work with friends and family, which is very loosely written as having a substantial prior existing relationship with someone. And the general rule of thumb is, if I have something under contract and I meet you, you can't invest in that deal. but you can invest on my next deal that we do, a month or two later. So if you're an accredited investor, you can invest in our other deals. And the big difference with a 506B and a 506C is you can only have 35 non-accredited investors with a 506B, unlimited accredited investors, but they do have to verify that they're accredited. In a 506C, you can have unlimited accredited. An accredited investor is someone that has a net worth of over $1 million, not including the value of their primary residence, or makes $200,000 as an individual or $300,000 as a married couple. And to specify what that means is, even if you're married, if one of you makes $200,000 and the other is a stay-at-home mom, you still meet the criteria as an accredited investor. And if you are married and one makes $200,000, the other makes $100,000, you meet the criteria.
Yep.
So
Good info there.
So looks like Eric Lindeen has a question. What's the tax difference, dividend versus various gains? So the big difference is, in a syndication, there's a difference between recovery of capital and a dividend. So consult your CPA for the specifics of it, but the general overview is that one is taxed as capital gains and the other is taxed as ordinary income. And whereas with a shareholder, when you're a shareholder in a fund, the same way as when you invest in the stock market, if you buy a stock at $100 a share and you sell it at $200,000 a share, you get your initial 100 back, and that $100 difference, you pay capital gains on the difference. And those are long-term capital gains taxed at the ordinary income tax rate, as long as you held it for more than 1 year. With the fund, it's very similar, as if you're taxed on the gains that you get for as ordinary income and the dividends as well.
Yeah, great explanation. We have a ton of questions in here. You want to scroll down on a couple of those?
Yeah, so am I able to claim depreciation on my taxes at the end of the year for my investment in the syndication? Yes. So the depreciation is a pass-through, right? You want to talk about that?
And you have them for both the fund and the syndication. You both have tax benefits of both. So I don't know per se if one's better than the other for tax advantages. If you want to discuss that a little bit.
It depends on the holdings. If part of the sponsor's strategy is the tax advantage of doing a cost segregation and offsetting all those, then a syndication that has a very short lifespan, they can front load those taxes very quickly. There is a recapture on the sale, so you got to be careful of that. But with a fund, you have the depreciation of a bunch of assets. So you can go flip a property, take a cash, disbursement over here, and cost segregate another property over here and offset that income.
Yeah. Which the cost segregation is another topic you can jump onto a little bit, but breaking it down on the different capital expenditures on each property.
Yeah, so basically how the depreciation is calculated is typically over 27.5 years. So if you have a $1 million property, take $1 million divided by 27.5, and that's how much you can depreciate every single year.
Yeah.
So in year one, $27,000, $27,500, and year two, it's going to be the same. When you do a cost segregation study, an engineer comes out and they check how old your carpets are, your shrubbery, your
mechanicals,
everything,
the furnace and AC units.
Yeah, and they front load all that depreciation so that you can offset you can take a paper loss on your property in the first few years. So another question.
Brad wants to know, Brad Bader, why would you get involved in a fund versus syndication versus a joint venture? A joint venture, a lot of people call them JV, is when two parties get together and join forces, basically.
But they all have to have an active role.
Yes, an active role.
Yeah. So, that was the fourth Howey test, is by the effort of others.
Okay.
Yes. So if someone else is doing the legwork.
Yes.
But yeah, so in a joint venture, everyone has to be involved and have an active role. All partners.
Yes.
So in a syndication, there is the active partners, which is the general partner or the sponsor,
or JP as they call it.
Yep, and then or GP, and then
JP. I'm JV again here.
and then the limited partners who passively invest the capital, and the same is true with a fund. And so I think if you're looking to build that long-term wealth and you want multiple projects where the wheel is always turning, you have this assembly line of deals that you're just getting into and deals that are just falling off and getting sold, that's the reason to get into a fund where it's constant growth. Whereas a syndication is more of I want to try and double my money in the next few years, and it's a quick in and out play.
Yeah.
So
Jennifer wants to know which investment is more expensive. So there are like expenses that come with doing a syndication, the upfront fees. There's
Right.
different fees for a syndication versus a fund. You want to discuss that a little bit on the different fees you can expect for a syndication?
So when setting up the fund, I mean, the expense is usually covered by the general partner. They will take care of all the initial startup costs, whether it's a fund or a syndication. But there is a difference. So in a syndication, that's a 506B syndication, which is for non-accredited investors or just sophisticated investors. It's typically anywhere between $50,000 to $65,000 to set up, where the general partner has to front load that cost and recoup it during the acquisition of the property. And the reason it's so expensive is because the attorneys have to have a lot of disclosures where they're, explaining all the risks to the investors who maybe don't have a whole lot of experience in it. With accredited investors, they're expected to be more knowledgeable, so it might only cost us about $15,000 to $25,000 to set up, and the same is true with the fund. It's probably $15,000 to $20,000 to set up. Like I said, just because they're expected to be more knowledgeable.
Although we don't have to, once it's set up, you don't have to keep setting it up like for a syndication. You usually set it up at one time, and you can put all the assets into it for the fund.
Oh, for the fund, yeah,
Yes,
yeah. So
yes.
the only additional cost is when you raise
Do
another
another
round of
capital call, yeah.
Right. Yeah.
So
which investment is suitable for millennials?
I would say it depends on the investor, what their goals are and what their expectations are. There's different investments for any type of person. It depends on what their goals and their dreams are, and playing out to those. And that's a question we like to ask people ahead of time. What are your goals? What are you looking for? Maybe we're not the right investment strategy for you.
Yes,
So
absolutely. So we'll answer this last question, and then after everyone gets to watch the recording, we'd love to see more comments come in, and we'll go in there and answer them after the fact. So let's see, this last question is, so a fund would be better for consistent dividends, and syndication brings home the bacon. So I wouldn't say that a syndication always brings home the bacon. It really comes down to having a strong operator.
yeah,
But a fund is the wealth creation vehicle.
yeah,
Right.
Which I've seen, funds just over time accumulate massive amounts
Right.
of assets and again, and then in returns in the end. So it's more of a, what would you say, a legacy
Yeah.
fund.
Yeah, absolutely. Legacy wealth, and that's what I mean. Is the
Legacy
wealth
wealth.
building
There you
vehicle.
go.
So if you're
Legacy wealth.
if you're with a good operator, you can build your wealth from doing multiple syndications with that operator. And not to say that it's any better, but the consistent drive of a fund is definitely where the generational wealth is created. So,
Yes.
all right. Wow, that's a lot of questions. So, thank you guys.
We're gonna end it already?
Yeah.
All these questions, we could keep going.
Yeah. Well, we'll make it on the next one. We'll definitely have another webinar on February 23rd. The topic
Yes.
will be mindset of an investor, work and life balance while having multiple investments.
Yeah, work-life balance. So my wife and I think that's the plan, are gonna discuss how we were able to balance our work and our life, working together, having kids, all of that.
Multiple businesses.
How do you find the time to do everything? So we're gonna go into a great discussion about that. That'll be February 23rd. Please tune in for that. We'll have more information on it.
Yep, the details are in the pinned comment. Be sure to sign up on the link so we can send you a link to invite you to the webinar on the day of.
Yep. You sure you don't want to answer any more questions? Okay. Well, we did have a great time. I've loved hearing you talking and going into deep discussion about this wealth of knowledge, Tanner. And,
I like hearing the stories.
It's been great working with you, and also, the bumps in the road, all of life experience that we've had. It's great to share that with everybody. So, you got anything else you want to add to that before we sign off?
No, I'm glad for the opportunity. This was a lot of fun, and we'll definitely look forward to doing this next month, same time, same place.
Yep.
So,
and if there are any questions in the chat, I still see a couple that we didn't get to. We'll answer your questions, and maybe we'll bring it up on our next one.
yeah, maybe we'll send out some videos to respond to them.
Oh yes, there you go.
All
We
right.
can have We'll do some small clips and answer those questions.
Well, thank you guys for joining us, and have a great evening.
Yep. Thank you, everybody.